this one here.
This is part 2, page 2. Part 2, page 2. He will. No question.
There we go. So welcome, Mr. George. You know the drill, 10 minutes. If you wish us to ask any questions, please give us some time in your 10 minutes. Thanks. In microphone, please.
I've presented here before, so...
Just touch the button. There's a button there. Yep. There you go.
I've presented here before, so there's a background behind what I say. First of all, I'd like to explain who Destination Napier is. It's a tourism grouping that's in the process of incorporation at this moment, and the board of it consists of myself, Stuart Nash is our patron, Byron, who's past chairman of the National Party, is on there. The CEO of Hawke's New Zealand's on there. The CEO of Hawke's Bay Basketball's on there. The past president of Hospitality New Zealand Hawke's Bay branch is on there. We've got a representative of Hawke's Bay Maori Tourism, who's also on the New Zealand Maori Tourism Board. The Taiwhenua for Napier's on there. And we have a couple of operators as well who are renowned for their expertise. Right, so our interest is in promoting tourism in a logical and progressive way. So we see that strategic efficiency is an essential prerequisite for tactical advantage. You can keep on making tactical decisions within the wrong strategy, and you'll never get the optimum outcomes that you need, because tourism is a very competitive industry. The base case for strategic tourism that exists at the moment indicates there's a need for review. Here we have some basic information. Tourism is 10% of the Napier economy, or GDP, according to the MBIE, 6.5% of the Hawke's Bay region. So you could say that it's important that it's to the region, but if you took the 10% of the Napier out, the regional percentage would drop down quite a bit, and that means there's funding decisions that come in there. A return to 2006 levels of visitor arrivals into the commercial accommodation sector in Napier would result in a 2% increase in GDP. The Hawke's Bay market overview. Now, I realise that you've got a situation where, in a Kafka would admire this, but where your council-controlled organisation is presenting as an independent body and also commenting on the presentation of others, which can lead to a bias towards self-interest, and that's why it's important that people like ourselves stand up and speak to you. So in March, these are the figures for between March 2006 and now, and you can see the decline across the total region is quite significant, given that it's not something that's reflected across the nation. And it's not really across the nation where you need to compare us, it's against the market leaders, and they have got nothing like this type of performance. I put the December 2010 and December 2014 figures in there because it shows you the loss, and I realise that in some of the information presented by the council-controlled organisation, it showed that December 2014 for the month was ahead of December 2010. That's true, but the relevant information is for the year ending on the 31st of that month. And if you go back through the year, you come out with this type of loss here. So we're seeking objectivity in the decisions that the council comes to. There's March 11 to 2015 loss. This is the Napier view. We go from March 2006 to 2015. You see that there's a substantial loss that goes against national trend under the market strategies in play. Now, if you drive your hub, you know I've said this before, you actually feed the surrounding area. That's how it works in Queenstown. It's Queenstown that drives people to Arrowtown. No one stays in Queenstown. Not many people go to Arrowtown. The missing arrivals that we've seen here, you've got to consider them as pure discretionary tourists. They're tourists as distinct from visitors for weddings, funerals, private or public sector businesses, family reunions, etc. As these people are still going on holiday, they're just going somewhere else. The traveller is different from the tourist. The traveller who comes here for those reasons, as the old Gilbert Chesterton said, the traveller sees what he sees because he's here for other reasons. The tourist sees what he has come to see. So we've got a request really with our group, and we request that we are allowed to input. We've tried for some time to input through the council-controlled organisation, but they're not open to alternative or more educated thinking. And we request that we are allowed to participate in the structure of an independent report to optimise tourism destination strategy for the region. And we have contacts with PwC and with Massey University School of Business that we would bring into play there. We ask that a strategic comparison between HBRC and Queenstown and Southern Lakes Territorial Authorities tourism structures be considered absolutely essential. We know that the drivers are different because we have a lot more access to domestic tourists, access to a lot higher number of domestic tourists than Queenstown does in terms of proximity. We ask that Destination Napier Incorporated and Hawke's Bay Maori Tourism both be included as private sector tourism community representatives with governance input on Hawke's Bay Tourism's board. Any questions? Oh, sorry, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. George. So, any questions for Mr. George? Thank you, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. George, and we'll forget about the missing date about bed and breakfasts and rent-a-batch and all that. But you've made a point between the traveller and the tourist. Your commercial monitor, can you give us a breakdown on that, please, and let us see where the changes have occurred?
Yeah. The commercial accommodation monitor does not give clear information that differentiates between a traveller and a tourist in the domestic market. The domestic market being our main driver. We know the overseas market and we know the domestic market, but we don't know the exact percentages of discretionary tourists. In looking at bed and breakfast and other data that's not there, including visitor, family and friends, the essential thing to remember is that you've got to explain why we're out of step with other destinations that are all partaking in the commercial accommodation monitor. And you've got to realise that there's millions of bed nights that are in this. There is no statistical variation. It's considered a census. So you've got to explain why we're going in a different direction from our competitors.
Councillor Belford.
I guess I'm still not quite understanding what this distinction is between arrivals and tourists. You're basically saying that what you're calling a visitor, you're saying organically arrives here anyway.
So in the commercial accommodation monitor, everybody that comes in and stays in commercial accommodation is called an arrival. We can go on and talk about guest nights, but to keep it simple, I'm just talking about the number of people that check in to commercial accommodation. Does that help or not help? No? God, sorry, can you ask me again and I'll see if I understand where you're coming from.
Well, I'm trying to understand what your critique is of you seem to be hanging your critique on this distinction between tourists and visitors.
Okay.
And it would appear that you're arguing that the measure of effective marketing
Right.
of the region would be on how many tourists
Yes.
are attracted,
Yes.
not how many visitors. Is that correct?
Okay, that's right, Tom. I see where you're coming from. What I'm saying is that people still come and visit family and friends, people still get married, people still die, and
And you're saying that's independent of the marketing spend?
commercial travellers turn up. Yes, I am. I'm saying that they don't die or get married because of tourism promotion. But the people that can decide which destination they're going to, the people that are discretionary, they're the ones that are not turning up. That's where our loss lies.
Thank you, Mr. George. The 10 minutes is up. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very
And,
much for your time.
we will be back to you in the very near future, so thank you. Okay, need to grab that. Okay, so now we have, who was actually next? Deliberation. Well, is there anyone else here? Oh, Damon is here.
Do you want to go now?
You need to catch your breath. You sporty type, so you'd be right. Sporty type. Okay. Had to pick the other guy up, doubled him back.
This is part 2, page 11.
So welcome, guys. Good to see Sport Hawke's Bay here, as we normally do. And that's 33. Right. So same gig as before, 10 minutes, and how it works for a newcomer is 10 minutes is your time to do with as you wish, but if you wish us to ask you questions, can you please allow for it within that 10 minutes? So.
Thank you very much for the invitation to be here. For those who... Is that better? For those who haven't met me, I'm Mark Aspden, the new Chief Executive of Sport Hawke's Bay, and very excited to be in the region and have the opportunity to contribute to the development of sport in the region. I won't take anything like the 10 minutes you've made available to us, but just a couple of 3 points I want to emphasise and update. And the first is the MOU, which we noted in our submission, remained unsigned, and of course that has now been signed, and I'd like to thank your chairman for his assistance in getting that through, but it's now been signed by the mayors of all 5 councils in the region, which is a great piece of progress and hopefully provides a reference document which people will be able to work to with significant infrastructure plans in the future. The two key points I'd like to make other than that are, first, that we're generally very supportive of the initiatives the councils have shown and have proposed in terms of active recreation opportunities. I guess particular focus on cycling. You may have heard a bit about that already, but generally, as Sport Hawke's Bay, we're wishing to maintain our focus on developing clubs and schools, but also increase our focus in just getting the community active. So very supportive of any initiatives that can help with that. The other point I'd like to make is a very strong vote or request in favour of a regional rate, which I know has been on the table for quite some time. We, as a regional sports trust, are funded relatively less by local government than our peer organisations in other provinces. The significance of that is I think it makes it difficult for us to commit to a long-term strategy in terms of getting the community active, and we're very strongly of the view that regional rate would allow us to do that. Of course, everyone would love to have a regional rate, I know, but we've, I think, proven ourselves as an honest and independent broker in the area of sport, a good source of advice, and we'd like to be able to build on that. We think we can achieve a lot in terms of assisting with the health stats for the region, for example, which are, as everyone knows, are poor. So I guess in summary, just support for all the initiatives that the Council's proposing around active recreation, and a very keen desire to move to progress to a regional rate, which we understand to be reasonably well supported by the Mayoral Forum, but needing a little bit more work with a view to hopefully implementing it with effect perhaps from the 2016, from 1 July 2016.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Scott.
The regional rate, as far as facilities go, the relationship you would have over facilities is with TAs.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see a regional rate as something that would be collected on behalf of, or would you see this entity as the one that you would have the relationship with? If the regional council were to be the body collecting a regional rate.
Sure. I guess we would have to negotiate the specific details of what you would get if there was a regional rate. So we would see a relationship with the regional council. We would still envisage specific relationships with the territorial authorities over specific services they may require. So that would be, the regional rate would be umbrella funding for the development of recreation throughout the region. Have I answered that question? You're looking at me slightly quizzically.
We would deliver the programs that are specific to the community, and we would continue to do that. So there are programs that we do that are specific to Hastings at the moment that we would continue to do, and Napier vice versa. Now, that's not to say that going forward we actually are taking what are the best and most effective programs and can implement them across the region. And there are already examples of some of those programs that we do.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
There's been a lot of discussion around a regional, not sure it's regional rate, but a regional approach to major events, such as the hockey tournament, such as Horse of the Year, such as rugby events at McLean Park. Would you see this covering those kind of things?
We haven't discussed the real detail, but my initial reaction to that would be no. That this will be about getting the community up and active rather than specific events.
Minor, you do actually draw attention to the LTP not acknowledging the reference to, are you looking in the final versions as some inclusion?
Now that it's been signed, I guess we're less concerned about that. So if it's in, well and good. But you're talking about the facilities plan, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that it's been signed, it's less significant to us, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, you've made the progress you wanted.
Exactly.
Thank you.
It's got a supplementary to that, so if I could interrupt you just a bit. I'll be doing. Perhaps this is to you, Damon, as the chair. Wouldn't you see Sport Hawke's Bay as a generic controlling our sport in Hawke's Bay as a good vehicle to do that? What I proposed before, if we could get together and get a fund together as a region that funds 6 or 7 major events, helps fund. Would you think Sport Hawke's Bay would be a good catalyst to do that?
I think there's absolutely potential for that. I'm always someone that thinks like that way rather than sort of in too close. So I would hope that we are getting around the table and sort of have the ability to discuss those sort of ideas. Same with actual facilities. So I wouldn't actually stretch it out to events, but also, and I think I've talked to you about that previously. You know, that what are our regional events sort of sit under one umbrella would be fantastic.
Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Chair. So this is going back to regional rates again, and we have a submission from Napier City Council about, well, supporting the idea of a regional rate for such activities as the ones that you're responsible for. I'm interested to know, given that you have to have a relationship and apply for funding to several local authorities, how time consuming is that? Because that's one of the arguments that's been made by them, that, you know, it's inefficient use of your resources to have to take the hat around all over the place.
Yeah, I wouldn't overstate it, but I guess we apply to a lot of funders, and each has different requirements. So anything that can be removed from our processes is a positive from my viewpoint, and I guess there's some administrative requirement for each council as well. So yeah,
for the purposes of your ongoing funding, do you see it as a greater or a lesser risk than, like, if you've got all your eggs in the one basket here, let's say, is that a greater risk for you than?
We've got a very different arrangement with each of the councils. So some are very specific services. One gives us a lump sum amount. It doesn't bear any relationship necessarily to the population of the region, the amount we get. So as long as it was a long-term arrangement, I think that would be. While there's higher risk in having one funder, I think there's greater certainty as well. So.
Can I just add to that? I think it will enable us to be actually much more effective if we are across or working with one. And it goes back to what Rex was saying around those types of opportunities as well. We'd be able to look at things a lot sort of broader. We've talked to Fenton about, because of the poor health stats, and we're also regarded as one of the least active communities in New Zealand. Collectively, there's an opportunity there to work on something, and we're trying to get all the councils around the room to talk about that. But perhaps if we were with one lead agency on that, it may be a lot more effective and happen a lot quicker too.
Well, we're out of 10 seconds left, guys, but thank you very much, and it's very nice to get you in front of the council and say good day. So
Good to be here, thanks.
Good to see you here. Okay, thank you, guys, and we'll be in touch in the very near